Welcome back to Dates with the Yates.
Welcome.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
No costumes this way. This is a Christian family, but
It is a Christian family, but
just wanted to come back. We haven't shot a video or done a vlog in a long time.
yes.
Had much more free time during COVID, and now that life has returned to normal, we have not been able to invest the time or energy into vlogging, but
Yeah.
we're starting to get back at it, and we thought what better way to do it than to give you guys a recap of Euro Day Yates.
Yes.
For those of you who follow us on Instagram at Dates with the Yates, who watch our YouTube channel and follow Serena and I, you saw that last year we did a 4-week European excursion from November to December. That was a trip of a lifetime.
It really was.
A lot of people asked us questions, wanted to learn how we did it, wanted to know more about the trip. So what better way to do it than, nearly a year later to release a few different videos detailing the trip. Our idea was hers. We saw people doing it online, people saying, hey, I'm moving here during COVID for a month, I'm moving here permanently. And, we had some flexibility with our schedules, have been, blessed and fortunate to be able to prepare for something like COVID and prepare for extended travel. And that's kind of how her idea came to fruition.
Yes. I think that being able to, the original thought to live abroad, it was something that kind of came to mind because I felt like we could do it. As some people know, I am a business owner, and so it's easier for me to kind of like navigate the space. And then, by him being in the office, his schedule was more hybrid, so he kind of has, and you have unlimited PTO as well.
Don't tell the world that.
But, okay.
I'll be telling them.
Whatever. Anyway, it's a secret, but not a secret. But it on both ends, it allowed us the flexibility to be able to do something like this. So I was happy when he agreed to let me start planning because initially, like I said, he thought it was crazy. So that's kind of like the origin of how we came to this trip.
You got to think, I didn't take my first international trip until I was 25 years old. And that was to the Dominican Republic for a wedding. So for her to come to me less than 10 years later and say, hey, we're going to spend a month in not just Jamaica or Mexico, nothing against those places, but those are, places in the Caribbean are a little easier to navigate and to have access to. But to say, hey, we're going to spend a month in Europe, bouncing around through Europe. At that point, we hadn't really made up what it was going to be like and how extensive it was going to be. But even to say, hey, to spend 3 to 5 weeks in Europe, I was like, I don't know about that. So I was a little hesitant.
It was an adjustment for his mind. It was an adjustment for his mind. So the fact that, he was open and willing to take such a trip, it was, made me really happy because it gave him some insight into like how I like to travel because we definitely travel very differently. I am more of an explorer type of traveler. I like to move around. He is more a beach guy. He likes to go to one location, lay on the beach, it's more relaxation.
Get my sip on.
And I like those trips from time to time, but I think that for me, it brought me joy to just be able to maximize a vacation if I had the opportunity. So I love to be able to pull out a globe. So I'm going to walk you through my process of like what we did. But it was great because we were able to kind of bring together our two worlds and the way that we travel independently, right? And bring it together and both work together simultaneously in order to like execute this trip to perfection. So it was really, really awesome.
So we talked about this being your idea. I think next to kind of share how did we come up with location? Like, what was the process there? Because as big as the world is, like, to say, hey, we're going to go somewhere for 4 weeks, like, how do we land on, or how did you specifically kind of land on Europe?
So I feel like I have traveled Europe quite a bit, not as much as I would like, but, you know, a decent amount. And I've traveled it as a solo traveler and also, like, with friends. And so I always felt like Europe was a place that was easy to navigate. If you're not an experienced traveler, I felt like it was a place where you could be comfortable, you could be safe. There's a lot of places you can go if you're not fluent in other languages that, you know, you can kind of get to, and you can be comfortable navigating just being an English speaker. Let's hop around and let's really maximize the locations that we can travel to. We'll just kind of backpack instead of just making one location our home base. And I felt like we can do that as long as we were conservative with the way that we packed.
Yeah.
Which
we'll talk about that later. Packing is a whole other ballgame. But so from there, once we decided Europe, like once again, I said I ain't the best at geography, but we started these weekly planning meetings. And I felt like I looked at this globe here. I looked at maps more than I ever have in my life, because we were trying to figure out, all right, if we're going to do 4 weeks somewhere, we're not just going to stay in one place. What makes sense logically and just from a planning standpoint as far as location? So it was like going through maps. It was like plotting things out. Google Maps online, like to get here, do this. Yeah,
I love using a globe or a map. So the way that I like to trip plan is just, I'm a visual person. So I'll look at a globe. Okay, we want to go to Europe, and then from there, I'm mapping out.
You know where Europe is?
Yes, it is. It's right here, Europe. So then I'm picking a base, right? A place that is easily to access from your home city or whatever. So, okay, from Washington, D.C., I know that London is popular.
Yeah.
I know that Paris is popular. I know that, like, Amsterdam, like, it's easy to kind of get a direct flight to.
And that was the gotcha. That's what started everything. Because we're looking, we're throwing stuff around. She said Amsterdam. I wouldn't mind going to Amsterdam. We happened to look up flights. And Amsterdam, we got a really good flight to Amsterdam.
Yeah. So that's the key, is like if you pick a popular destination to fly in and out of,
it's easy to get to.
It's easy to get to, and it's more affordable.
Like a place like Amsterdam, you can get there. It was like 8 hours from Detroit.
Detroit.
Yeah.
DC.
I mean, even Detroit, it's not that.
Yeah, it's not far. It's a little. I mean, it's short. It's closer.
But I think we were talking to my parents. But I think that was the start of everything, because it was like, all right, she kept throwing these places out in Europe, and I'm like, or I would say things. I'm like, what about Switzerland? And she's like, it costs too much. I'm like, all right, I'm straight on that. And then she would say Berlin. I'm like, I don't know nothing about Berlin, but the Berlin Wall, I'm good. But then we kept just throwing ideas out, because like I said, we started, and this is something for everybody. You have to get a normal cadence so it doesn't become overwhelming. And instead of us sitting down just like our wedding planning, as we talked about in another video, instead of sitting down every night talking about the trip, we identified a day or two a week that we were like, all right, let's focus on this.
Yeah, very important.
And we would sit around sometimes sipping, and we'd be like, she'd throw out a place. I'd be like, I'm straight. She'd throw out another place. I don't know. Then she threw out Amsterdam. I was like, I always wanted to go to Amsterdam. Find that starting point.
Yeah.
And you can do that. Like I said, we play around with flights on Google, and we play a lot on Kayak and Hopper. And literally we were like, oh, this isn't bad.
Yeah, and I think it was like 5 something, you know. And so that's basically what you want to do. So you want to find a city that you could fly in and out of, okay? So that is the first order of business. And then you plan your trip around that. So we look at a map and say, okay, what's close to, you know, the Netherlands, or, you know, which is, you know, the country. But
that's where Amsterdam is for all y'all.
Okay. So anyway, you pick Amsterdam, okay? And then you just kind of go around, you know, the map, and you can pick different places that make sense based upon the geography, because you don't want to be going in a direction that doesn't make sense, right? So we knew that we were going to go a lot of places, so we were just kind of like, okay, we're going to start here, and then we'll map out whether we're going to fly or take the train in between.
And before all of that, we are huge proponents of planning your own trips.
Yeah.
Some people are no offense, I know some people are busy, some people don't necessarily understand how to do it, but she knows I get on Google in a minute and I will search, when she said, hey, we're taking 4 weeks, and I search 4-week itinerary, 4-week Europe itinerary, or 4-week itinerary in Europe starting in Amsterdam. And you get a ton of different resources. You start to build this base. And it's not like you got to do everything that Google says or do everything that these websites say, but at least gives you some type of idea. You got to think, I had never been to Europe. So I didn't know where to go, what to do, but it was like, instead of paying a travel agent, no offense, and shout out to Trav, my travel agent. But for me, there's certain things that we can do on our own, and you can kind of just focus on those opportunities of bonding and planning that stuff.
Yeah,
because she knows what I like. I know that budgeting component becomes key because, you want to make sure, as much as you want to enjoy the trip, you don't want to go broke doing it either.
Exactly.
So if you have, we talked about Delta, if you got Sky Miles, like figure out where your Sky Miles can get you for the initial part of the trip. I am a Marriott Titanium Elite. I think back then I was ambassador. Like we had, almost 400,000 Marriott points that we could this on hotels. So when you do these, you're doing your budgeting and you making sure, you have the resources available to take a trip like this, dig into things like your credit card points, your miles from airlines, your hotel, rewards points, and find a way to really use those to your advantage so you're not stressed thin as far as, spending a ton of money, Sure. There were places, and as we get into locations, there are places all right, we got to stay here. I don't care if it is a Marriott property in this place. We got to stay at this high-end hotel. We got to stay in this nice hotel based on location or based on
you
just
pick
preference.
Certain cities that you want to stay. If there's a particular hotel that you've always dreamt that you wanted to stay in, then you do splurge in certain areas. You may splurge on okay, I'm gonna have a nice dinner in Paris. Okay, you splurge on that. But you definitely want to make it as budget friendly as possible.
But
I was gonna say, yeah, exactly. Be resourceful. I mean, can you do this type of trip for 10? Probably. Yeah. That wasn't our situation because there was a balance between the two. But everybody wants to know how much is this type of trip? But it's in, it's definitely north of 15, in between 15 and 20 for sure.
$1,000, not dollars.
Right.
But to that point, it's be resourceful, understand your limits and understand that, hey, if you want to do something like this, you may want to stack and plan ahead, use your resources, use your miles, use your points, but then also recognize that, hey, maybe this year, or maybe maybe I don't do 4 weeks. Maybe I do 2.5, maybe I do 3. Plan it so it works for you. If you only get 2 weeks off of work, take that, maybe hold on to that 2 weeks and take a trip like this. But I think, just be resourceful as far as budgeting and planning, just so you don't do yourself a disservice. So in addition to budgeting, we talk about that every week, kind of checking in. I'm like, all right, how much do we spend on this?
One of the questions that was important for me to check in with Marvin about is what places in Europe did he want to go, right? What places were important to him? So he kind of made a list of the places that were important to him, right?
I think we knew we wanted to go to Amsterdam. Well, that's where we were starting at. So it was Amsterdam. Both of us had been to London, but I was like, London is a staple. We can do London. Paris. We knew we wanted to go to Paris. We knew something in Italy. We didn't know exactly where in Italy, but we knew we wanted Italian food. We knew we wanted to experience some of that. So I think,
and we knew we wanted it to be, since it was around the holiday.
Good food.
I mean, right. So we were traveling around Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So we were like, okay, we definitely want to, even though they don't celebrate Thanksgiving there, we do. And so we wanted to make sure that we had a good meal on that day. You know, especially since this was our first time ever traveling for Thanksgiving out of the country on our own. You know, it was like, okay, we still want to bring that tradition with us, and you know, because it's something that we're used to. So that was important, and I knew for sure that we can get good food in Italy.
Yep.
Like that was,
now we'll talk more about it. But
yeah. So those were things that like were staples. Okay, our departing or our arrival city, departing city, we knew that was going to be the same.
And we knew we had to come back around, so that kind of...
Exactly. So it was like going to be a circle, basically. But then we also knew, okay, we want to be in Italy for Thanksgiving. So like that was something that, you know, kind of like landed, and that was like a permanent, right? So everything else was like built around
But
that.
then I think there were other things, like the fact that, you know, we talked about Amsterdam, we talked about Italy, we talked about Paris, London. I think there were places that she really wanted to go to that I didn't necessarily care about, but we had to find a way to build it in. So Prague. Prague
was really important to me. I was almost gonna like forfeit it, but just because it became a challenge. But we'll talk about that. But Prague was one of those places that I had, you know, always kind of wanted to go to, but you know, I didn't know if it was going to be a possibility. But when the opportunity like this presented itself, and I was like, oh, well, we're going to be close enough where we can go, then I definitely want to add that to the list.
Yeah.
A lot of the places that we have been, or that I've been, we did go. So like, for example, Amsterdam, like I had been there before. I knew that would be a really good place to start because it's very easy to navigate.
But we knew that was the foundation.
Yeah.
It was Amsterdam, London, Paris.
Wait, you have to slow down. Okay, you're giving them the rundown.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that the staples for us in the planning part.
Okay.
We knew we had to start and end in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
We knew we wanted to go to Paris. Just made sense. Mm-hmm. We knew we had to go to Italy based on, you know, food and having, you know, being there during Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. London is also, you know, a staple that we kind of, you know, figured we had to go through. And then also I think Prague because of you. Like everything else was like, okay, now we have about 4 or 5 spots we have to get to. Mm-hmm. Now we just got to figure out the path to get to all of them.
Exactly.
And that's when these maps and Google and all of these things.
So that's the thing. You cross-reference. Well, this is how I do it. So once we decided on the locations, right? So to help build it or bridge it, then it's like I'm looking at books. This is one of my like favorite books for like trip planning, especially for Europe, right? Use this. So like for everywhere we went in Europe, use this. So I started here, and then
Serena used that. She used the map,
the globe, the map.
We used our laptop to kind of like look at locations, and then like I said, once again, Google. Like if you just search 4-week itinerary Europe starting in Amsterdam, you may get 10, 20 different sample itineraries.
Exactly.
And we printed those off, looked at them side by side, like, okay, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense, and kind of played around with it. And then also, we started to once we started to make those connections, we had to figure out transportation. And I think that was the most definitive part of the process to say, hey, we want to go from here to here, but logistically that doesn't make sense as far as train or plane. And it's like, okay, if that doesn't make sense, we need to put something between the two, or we need to figure out somewhere else to go. Yeah,
because you don't want to spend, you're already there, right? And it's like you don't want to spend a lot of time traveling in between if you don't have to. So you want to look for places that are easy to access, that may not take, a long time to get to. So like the train, you only want to spend maybe 2 hours, 3 tops,
2 or 3 hours on the train or plane, and anything over that,
it doesn't make sense.
Then it's like, it
or
makes
you
sense,
put in
but you
another,
gotta put something else.
Exactly. You add another city in between to bridge it so that it breaks up the commute.
So our final locations so we started planning this in June, July-ish. June.
I would say June.
Yeah. I'll kind of let's talk a little bit about some of those difficult points, and then we'll kind of lay out where we ended up.
Okay.
So Prague was difficult. Prague was on her no can, like we couldn't cut it. We couldn't cut it. Like she was just like, there's no way we're not going to Prague. And I'm like, it doesn't make sense. Like it doesn't make sense from a time standpoint, from a location standpoint. And then what did we figure out right before? It was Munich.
It was Munich.
Because we were between Barcelona. We had to go from Barcelona to Prague back to Amsterdam.
And I think I was trying to incorporate Berlin.
Yeah.
And I think that was the issue. That's where the Prague gave us issues because I couldn't figure out
and then there was
how to connect that Berlin to Prague commute.
There's also difficulties when you talk about Europe and other places, other foreign countries, political unrest, war. And there were places that we were like, well, we don't know what the situation is politically there.
Yeah, because I think Berlin wasn't. They had some political unrest there during that time.
So Berlin was a place where it's like it makes sense from a logistical standpoint, but we're not sure.
Exactly.
And the last thing you want to do is be in Europe and get stuck somewhere, be in danger.
Yeah.
So we tried to pick places that we felt comfortable, we felt safe. Prague was difficult. Even the initial Amsterdam to London, like we were trying to figure out what to go in the middle there.
Exactly, we did.
Because we know we had to go. We knew we had to go London, Paris, Italy, but we had to get something before London after Amsterdam. First stop, Amsterdam. Second stop, Brussels. Third, London. 4, Paris. 5, Milan. 6, Florence. 7, Venice. 8, Barcelona. 9, Lisbon. 10, Munich. 11, Prague. And then back to Amsterdam.
Yeah, and it did not start with this many locations, FYI.
We said we were going to do maybe, 8?
I think it started with 7.
7, like 7 or 8.
And then this one here kept adding more and more places. I'm like,
well, you get doing research.
I think this is ridiculous.
You get doing research, you're like, dang, that look kind of cold. I might want to go there. And you just, but it was things that for me, I don't know if I'll ever go back to certain places. So it was like, let me check it out while we're over there. But then also it was the addition of places that we were like, well, I don't really want to go there, but we have to.
Yeah. And I mean, there were places that like I said, like I've been that he hadn't been, or places that like, neither one of us had been, we wanted to experience together. So I think there were quite a few places on the list that I had been. So I'm like, well, I don't want to just go to places that I've been like and not, experience anything new.
It wasn't just, okay, here's the 12 places we're going, but it was, here's stop number 1, here's how you get to stop number 2. Here's stop number 2, here's how you get to stop number 3. Here's stop number 3, here's how you get to stop number 4. And once we were able to not just figure out the locations, but we were figuring out how to get to them.
And how much they cost.
And how much they cost to get in between, and the locations of each. From there, we were able to create a plan of action to kind of divide and conquer.
Time as well. So timing in between, price point in between.
Location.
And location,
And that's when we were able to divide and conquer. So it was, these are the places either Serena knows or really cares about. So she'll take the lead on finding hotels. These are the leftover places or places that have really good Marriott properties that I can use points for. So I'll take the lead on them. She took the lead on the trains. All the locations that we had to get to via train, she took the lead.
Which you can get a Eurail pass, and that helps to navigate you. And obviously it's like a flat rate. You do have to,
that's a whole nother, we'll give them.
I know, but you do have to pay individually based upon the places you go to, but the Europass does give you access to be able to navigate between each place.
And even then, we'll get into more logistics, like on, even like navigating when you're in places, like, you know, whether you're taking a train or Uber. But so she got the Euro Pass, figured out the stops that we could use the Euro Pass on, and then that was about half. And then I booked all of the flights that we had to have. So one of the things you can, you know, it's not like, you know, flights are not cheap, but not overly expensive. You know, we, you know, typically, like she said, you're taking a train, you know, 2 or 3 hours at most. And your flights are also, you know, anywhere between an hour to 3 hours. And, you know, maybe a couple $100 between us.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, so that's kind of divide and conquer. It's, okay, let's not put all this pressure on her. Let's not put all this pressure on me. Let's kind of like evenly distribute the responsibilities as far as bookings. And then, you know, we'll have our follow-up meetings. So
yeah. And it makes it fun. Like, it really is a lot of fun to, like, it's an activity. It's like putting together a puzzle. Like, it's like you're doing something as a team. And it really is an incredible experience. And it really is like you learn, you know, about each other in that planning process a little bit more. So
I even learned about myself. You got to think, I had never been to Europe. So like, I'm sitting there, I'm looking at stuff like, all right, she told me to look at the hotels in Prague. And I'm like, man, I never even been to Prague. So I'm like figuring out, okay, what do you do in Prague? What areas do you want to be in? Let me find the right hotel. You know, I'm looking up museums and, you know, in certain places in Amsterdam and other places that I'm not even a museum person, but I'm trying to add something to the conversation. I'm trying to contribute and not just focus on me. Like, I'm focused on what makes it a good trip. And that process is what makes it fun. So I think, you know, once we finalized our locations, you know, that took from June to September. Then it took us from another month and a half, almost 2 months.
Yeah, like
probably like end of October. To the end of October to continue to have these planning meetings to sit down and say, okay, what's missing? Did you do this? Did I do this? And it's like work. It's like it's work, but it's fun.
It's like it definitely was like another full-time job.
We had notes and stuff like y'all go to meetings and take notes.
We typed up stuff. We had all these like random side notes. We
had minutes from these meetings. Like we needed a secretary to be able to write these down because it was literally like, all right, for next week's meeting, what's your follow? It's not just where you're going and how you're getting there. With a trip so large, you're talking about a month's time for 12 locations. So you're doing 2 or 3 days in each location. And it's like, sometimes you should talk about backpacking. There's people who backpack and they're like, okay, I'll go to this place and I'll figure it out when I get there. We didn't do that. And she knows I'm a planner like that, and she actually appreciated that as opposed to just going there and figuring it out. Because now hotels are booked. Like, you can do it either way, but for us, for that long of a period of time, like to have everything laid out, it just made the trip a lot easier as opposed to having to book a hotel or book a flight or book a train while you're already in a place. So we had anywhere between, there were some places we only stayed a day. But it was literally a day to like 3 days in every stop. And we knew what we were doing. We knew where we were going.
But, you know, like I said, I want to know where I'm laying my head. I want to know, like, that I have my flight or train accommodations already made in advance. Because that's another thing, too. Like, flights get booked. Even if you are, you know, booking a international or not, a domestic trip once you get there, it's still... You know, they may have limited seats because those planes are smaller, right? So you do want to make sure that, you know, you make those accommodations, like, you know, prior to going on your trip. Also, like the train. A lot of people take the train, you know, in Europe. So that's another thing. Like, you want to make sure that you have, you know, planned that out too. Because those things get booked as well. So, but anything else kind of around that, you're usually fine.
And to each his own. You know, we're giving details and feedback on what we did and what worked for us. But if you want to do 2 weeks and you want to kind of just, you know, be spontaneous and figure it out when you get there, hey, that's on you. But for us, this type of commitment, this type of financial commitment, this type of, you know, as far as time, it made sense for us to logistically, as we planned everything out, to know exactly where we're going, how long we're staying there, how we're getting there, where we're going to stay, and then some things that while we're in these places that we want to do. You know, so those are our 12 stops on the trip. That was how we planned it. And in the next video, we'll kind of share more about the execution and actually, you know, November hit, actually taking the trip. So thank you for always following and watching Dates with the Yates. We got more coming soon.
Cheers.